Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breaking Boundaries. Today, we have a special and precious event, Art Therapy. I am very pleasant to be inviting four interesting speakers from various countries around the world. Today, I will be introducing my colleague, Fran, from the UK. Together, Fran and I will be your hosts for today's meeting. Welcome, Fran.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you, Ware, for inviting me tonight as well.
Thank you.
So, Ware, shall I take over at this point?
Yes, of course.
Lovely. So, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we've got an amazing event about art therapy, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker in a moment. So the structure of the event tonight is that each speaker is going to speak for around 15 minutes, maybe 20, and then we'll take 5 minutes after each speaker for your questions. So if you have a question, you can make a note of it, or you can pop it in the chat, and one of us will make sure that the person your question is directed at gets to see it, and there is time for them to respond. And then when each of the four speakers has presented tonight, we will have some general time at the end for general discussion and additional questions that may arise. Any questions from anyone so far? Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. If everyone can mute your microphone when you're not speaking, and then we will not get any feedback on the call. That would be great, thank you. And secondly, the topic is art therapy. So we thought a really nice idea while you're listening and on the call tonight, maybe you'd like to draw while you listen. Okay, so if you have pen, if you have paper nearby, maybe draw while you listen. We call it active listening. And then we thought at the end we can share what everybody has drawn. And this could be a stream of consciousness or anything you like. So that's completely optional and might be something fun to do while you're listening and watching the presentations. Okay. And then lastly, part of the housekeeping, just a quick disclaimer, just to explain and remind everyone that tonight, the purpose of tonight is to hear more about art therapy and different modes of art therapy and different practices. As we are speaking about a very serious topic of mental health, we just want to remind everyone that this, unfortunately, is not a forum for any particular personal queries or personal issues. If anyone has a difficulty or a personal question about mental health, you can stay on the call and we can provide professional advice as to signposting where you might want to go, or you might prefer to reach out to your own healthcare services. But tonight is to listen to practitioners and find out more about art therapy as a profession. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat and put your hand up, that's fine. And I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is James Ware from the north of England in the UK. I'm also in the north of England tonight. Hi, James. James is an art psychotherapist. He works in the clinical area of child and adolescent mental health. And through art and creative activity, James aims to provide therapeutic spaces for people to safely explore thoughts and feelings and for their personal growth. And I believe James is going to talk to us about the origins of art therapy and how it has become a registered profession in the UK. So without further ado, James, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I've made a little bit of a slideshow, and I don't normally use Zoom, so I'm going to test this out and hopefully it will work. So I'm going to do that. So I've got some images to show you, but yeah, my name is James Ware. I'm an art psychotherapist, and within the UK, it's become a state registered, a professional title in the same way as nurse or doctor or social worker. And it's a discipline which has grown really across the world. And it's really lovely to kind of be the first speaker today, even though a little bit daunting. And I thought with the images that I was going to bring, it was kind of sowing some seeds to make some connections. And hopefully, even though I've not met the other presenters today, I'm hoping that we'll see some links. So I'll share the slideshow and we'll talk that through. Okay, let me see. So there we go. Now, can people see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
We see it clearly.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm a registered art therapist with the Healthcare Professional Council and with the British Association of Art Therapists. So they govern what I do, so I'm a safe practitioner. I thought today was kind of thinking about thoughts and feelings and how to communicate thoughts and feelings and to understand thoughts and feelings. And sometimes that can be a really difficult thing to do. And in talking therapy, and when we talk to each other, we use lots of words, we're in conversation, and sometimes we have scripts about ourselves, and sometimes it's hard to be in tune with thoughts and feelings. I was quite taken by this first image of these sort of emoji blocks and just wondering kind of where people are and how hard it can be to be in those places. And is it easy to show in a smiley face? Is it easy to say in a word? Or actually are thoughts and feelings sometimes quite hard to express? So I'm kind of thinking as an image, the start of something, making a mark. And in art therapy, we're not interested in it being an art lesson. We're interested in it being a place to be safe and to express and to explore creatively. So I chose this image because I kind of thought, how do I introduce art therapy? And so kind of a sense of how you might process something, how you might share something. And we often have stories and narratives about ourselves and we tell them to each other. And we might say, well, I'm James, I'm an art therapist, this is who I am, I come from the north of England. But actually maybe, because Fran had suggested that we are making images or we are drawing as we're doing this, it's just to think about kind of when you do put pen to paper, when you do make something, there being a different language, a different experience. So within this drawing, we've got this character, he's sharpening his pencil, he's getting ready to draw. He begins to draw, and we can see his head's all squiggly. And then at the end, we've got this nice kind of metaphor where he's shared those thoughts and feelings on the paper. And maybe now he's beginning to work out what next. So thinking about art therapy as a discipline, it uses active art making or creative processes which are applied to psychological theory and human experiences through a psychotherapeutic relationship. So art therapy itself can be on quite a broad range. So we can have art making at one end, and at the other end, we can have art psychotherapy or analysis and working with images within a context of understanding ourselves psychologically. So it engages the mind, the body and spirit to reach personal and relational treatment goals differently from verbal articulation. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the origins of where we come from. So ancient civilizations, when we talk, we look for the origins of language. And if we think about kind of historically around the world, cave paintings have been found. And kind of thinking what was going on at that time, what took somebody to take some clay or make a mark into a piece of stone, and this natural need for us to communicate, to make with our hands. And if we think about the origins of language and the written form, we can also kind of see kind of how animals and figures became letters, became language, and became a way of communicating. But looking at that very primal need to make a mark is what we're really interested as art therapists, a different language. So here's some images that have been found around the world that have been kind of ancient, have been found in caves. And we just kind of think about when was that first time that somebody tried to represent something or share something in an image. So within the art therapy context, we invite people to work with art materials. I work with children and young people, and they come to me, and often we have to work through some real challenges. They may have experienced trauma, abuse. They may be trying to come to terms with grief and loss, and that they're not being able to put things into words. Maybe things are hard and their behavior is challenging to some, but they need a space which is safe. And we begin with the art making process. Sometimes it's about coming into a therapy space with me, and maybe it's just about picking a lump of clay up and feeling the lump of clay and sitting with the lump of clay. It can be quite daunting for somebody to make something. Perhaps somebody hasn't made a piece of artwork for a long time. In art therapy, you do not need to be good at art making. It isn't an art lesson. What it is a starting place, really. But with art making, with using materials, it can be a relaxing process, and the sensory process is really important. So when we think about the benefits of art therapy, there's lots of things it can bring. It can be fun. It can be a place of joy, but it also can be a place where sad feelings are brought, but it needs to be a safe place. So when somebody works with me in art therapy, I have to work really hard to make sure that they feel safe in the room I'm working with, that I provide materials, that I'm there, that I'm listening, that I'm with them, that I can help them make things as well. So sometimes I will work with people and we will build and make and do things together. And an important part of that is the social interaction, it is the connection, it is making somebody feel relaxed. And I'm sure that you've got times where you, hobbies of all sorts will help you relax, whether you're making bread, you're dancing, you're doing different things. Those things you need to ground yourself, and they can be really on an unconscious level. Creating bridges between internal and external life. I really like that statement. I think we have our internal worlds and we have our external worlds. And sometimes it's really quite hard to connect with our internal worlds. And art and arts therapy are really good vehicles for being able to connect to those thoughts and feelings. And we work in different ways. Here's some printmaking. So in art therapy, we might do printmaking, we might do collage, we might work with materials, we might be painting in the studio. And my role will be to nurture people to feel confident to pick that brush up and work. And I always work at my client's pace. So I'm there to facilitate, to support. And in the studio, that's a really important place, a safe place that we can step away. And when I'm working in the health service, the art therapy room needs to feel different. It needs to feel warm. It needs to feel containing, and all the things that somebody should need, whatever ideas they have, whether it's paint or ink, should be to hand. So there's something about the dialogue that goes in art therapy, where in talking therapies, we sit in a room face to face, maybe with your therapist, and you're talking. And sometimes that can be really useful, but other times people's experiences can be that talking therapy, they're stuck in some way, or they have a script. And with the art therapy, we can start to work with unconscious elements. So there's a little diagram in the corner here, a triangle or a triad. And in one corner it says artwork, in the other corner it says therapist, and the other corner says child. And sometimes the direct talking is hard in talking therapy, but if something can be put onto a piece of paper and shared, it can be externalized, be outside. And therefore it can be looked at differently. So in art therapy, we don't analyze and say, this image has such and such in it. That means that this happened, and this is how I'm going to diagnose you. I am really interested in the perception of my client's image and understanding of the image and their experience of making it. And I support them to make sense of what they've made, and then maybe begin a conversation around their experience when they're ready to do so. Sometimes when I work in art therapy, it can be many weeks before we verbalize. I work with young people who are on the autistic spectrum or have autism, or we have a query about whether they have autism, but their social communication skills, it's really difficult for them. But image making or working with things that are interested to them can be a really good starting place to build a therapeutic relationship. So as an art therapist, we can do one-to-one work. Quite a bit of my work at the moment is working one-to-one with young people who have long-term health conditions that are very complex and they're having to come to terms with their diagnosis. But we can do one-to-one sessions in the areas of the mental health support, and that can be longer term work or shorter term work, depending on the needs of that person. And we can be directive. So sometimes we can direct the work and set tasks to focus the young person or the client we're working with. And other times when we're working with trauma, or we're working with attachment, where we're trying to kind of help maybe a young person has some very difficult experiences, we maybe work with play in a much looser way, and somebody comes into the room and makes at their own pace. So there are different ways that we work. One way we might work is in a dyad. So that might be supporting to strengthen a relationship between parents and child, where the parent and child comes into the space and we work together. And that could be about trying to help parents to allow their child to express their thoughts and feelings in a safe way. And sometimes young children can become quite emotional or angry, and parents can become quite anxious about that. And what we try to do is nurture the child to express their feelings safely, to strengthen their relationship with their parents, and for parents to feel relaxed for their child to throw some paint around or get messy, and to say it's okay to get messy. So in art therapy, we like mess. Mess is part of a process. So sometimes for parents to allow their children to be messy can be really difficult. And really, I like to see mess. It's good. We have family sessions and bring family together. Families can have challenges communicating with each other. We can use art therapy together with family therapy ideas and bring the family together to do problem solving. And that's a really nice way of working sometimes, where families are really struck with talking because people get angry. And sometimes it's a way of diffusing situations and refocusing people on how they're going to work together as a family, how they're going to solve problems. So sometimes building or making something together as a family, making a sculpture, can actually be a less threatening way of finding a solution or finding a way for the family to reconnect. And also we work as groups, and groups are really interesting. We can work with groups in different settings. So sometimes on units, we can work where maybe young people or adults have eating disorders, and art therapy and art making can be very useful. There's a real good evidence base for working with young people and adults who experience psychosis, and art making and image making is identified as a really useful process, and within a group setting can also be useful. So just kind of a point really there at the end really is that kind of a connection there. I kind of thought somewhere to kind of start your journey if you're looking for a bit more information about art therapy. There's a wiki link there. The British Art Therapy Association homepage is really useful to get a sense of art therapy in the UK. But I appreciate that in the United States and other parts of the world, we've got connections, but also we've got different ways of doing things. And in some parts of the world, art therapy is quite new and developing and small. And in other parts of the world, it's quite established. And there are different ways of working, really. I guess just stop sharing my screen there. Am I back on screen now? Yes, I'm seeing some nods. Thank you. So art therapy, the history of art therapy, origins of art therapy in the UK come from an art therapist called Adrian Hill in the 1940s, where he worked with people who had tuberculosis, and he identified that there was kind of recovery. And through the art making process, he could see that people were recovering. Also in the UK, when the Second World War, when people returned, and the First World War, people were returning from battles with trauma and were recovering. And the art making process there was identified. And it was the beginning of that journey in connections with Freud and other kind of psychotherapeutic, psychiatric kind of schools of thought, and image making kind of developed along the way with that. And I think it's been really interesting to kind of see where we are now. So for me, kind of thinking about the speakers that are coming on afterwards, I'm going to be really interested to kind of sort of see what schools of thought they have, what they bring themselves, how they're developing their practices. Because we talk about, in the UK, we talk about arts therapy, and that includes drama and music, but that also broadens into dance, performance, outdoor art making, and it's really growing, and the evidence base is really growing in all sorts of different areas. And we're fortunate within the British Art Therapy Association and within the International Art Therapy Journal to have pools of knowledge that are coming together, and that evidence base is being proven. But because we're such a small group, it does take a bit longer than maybe other areas such as cognitive behavioral therapy, but we're there. And I think it's really lovely that we're gathering today. So I'm hoping that some of the themes that I've brought in my presentation will maybe sow some seeds as we go along. Now, I don't know if people are making images at the moment, but I'm just kind of interested if you are picking up a pencil and making marks, what that feels like while you're talking. And I think it's being in tune with that process, maybe even moving things around the room or while you're talking or stacking things up. But I'm just wondering kind of as we go through the next kind of conversations, how we might connect that and how that might be useful to help you think and process as we go along. So I'm wondering if there's anything else I need to say, but I'll leave it there because it's a big subject and people have got lots to bring after me.
James, thank you so much. Honestly, heartfelt, beautiful presentation. And I think you've left it on a lovely note that is going to weave through the subsequent presentations and talks. I love that personally. Any questions from the audience for James before we move through to the rest of our speakers this evening? Okay, so I had a particular question, James, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it's obviously without naming anyone, if it's possible to share a particular success story that was successful to you in some way, that you felt that you perceived the therapeutic benefit of your work with somebody, and what that looked like to you and how it felt and why.
Yeah. I held one young person I worked with a number of years ago in mind, and they had come to work with me, and they were well, they were what we might call select mute. They had chosen not to speak. They were no longer communicating with their family. They were no longer communicating with their friends. They'd become quite closed off from the world. And this was a very young person of 8 years old, and nobody really knew what to do. And there was lots of anxiety, and there was lots of challenges, and there'd been some really difficult experiences of trauma. And other things have been tried, and then it was come to art therapy. And I worked for quite a lengthy piece of time, for probably about 8 months with this young man. And for the first few months, it was trying to kind of bring him into the room, to feel confident, to feel safe in the room. And we had to go very, very slowly. And then we started to make a map and a little world, and this world grew and grew, and the paper got bigger and bigger, and there were roads and streets, and then little characters, and then little families. And I was mindful that I couldn't put anxiety on for him to speak. And I was having to kind of manage my anxiety all the time because he was such a frightened little boy. And then one day he drew a little character, and then he said to me, statue. And I was like, I'd never heard this boy say anything. And I minded kind of not reacting, oh, wow, you're talking. But and then he passed it to me, and then I placed it in the middle of this little town that he'd drawn on the map. And then that became the way we began to work together, drawing tiny little figures and different things. And as the weeks progressed, we kind of built on that. His voice got a little bit louder. We heard a few more words, and then the words and the talking started to happen back with the family, and it started to happen again back in this room. And we got there, but it was very tentative, very slow, and we just needed to do little things like that. And I think that one for me is probably a nice one to share, to say the power of art making and what you have to do to help somebody feel safe when they're not safe, and just to be able to find words again through the creative process when words were something that they were not able to use. So yeah, I hope that was
Thank you. I know I personally take a lot from that. Audience, would anybody like to comment on that example or ask any questions?
I think Mr. Ali has a question. Mr. Ali?
Thank you, Fran. Thank you, James. I have an example from my own experience, and I have a question. Like James, you mentioned that art therapy as a therapy started back in the 1940s. Is there any evidence that people who suffered from war trauma, maybe soldiers, when they came back home, they started practicing art as a therapy? And as for the example from my own, when I am from Mosul, by the way, and I lived every single day under ISIS. So ISIS used, let's call it art, to express their propagandas, their code of law, their code of Sharia. And after the war, some Mosuli art.
I can't hear Ali anymore. Has he?
No.
Is he?
Without
Ali?
realizing that they are practicing art.
Ali, you're cutting out. So you know.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
So some local artists.
Mr. Ali, you started up and down.
Painting murals, and some local artists started practicing like art therapy through painting over ISIS murals, expressing the colors of life, bringing some heritage sites as paintings on the walls. So that's my example and my question. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. It is interesting about art making. There is a real evidence base, and I think if I had longer, I could probably give you a lot of information in relation to art and trauma, we have quite some real examples in the States of art therapists working, and in the UK working with people as they return from war, from conflict, from battle. Also kind of, I have colleagues who do travel around the world and do go to countries and support people with expressing thoughts and feelings afterwards. I think the example you gave is really interesting, very powerful. And that's the thing about art making. It can be very powerful and can be very difficult. When we think about art therapy, the therapeutic qualities of art making, we could think about that in different ways. Within art therapy, it's about making that safe place to distinguish that art therapy is going on in a safe space. And I think sometimes I'm really taken by the political side of art making, or art making being a form of communication. And sometimes it's a really interesting dialogue to be in as an artist, as a protester, or somebody taking a stand around human rights. And I think art can be a really interesting dialogue. The example you gave sounds like that. Sometimes that sounds very dangerous and really challenging. But I guess, yes, art making is a way of finding a voice, isn't it? And it is interesting if we had drew a line where we might find where art therapy might be in aspects of that, and where expression of frustration, or finding safer ways to communicate, or safer ways to have a conversation in unsafe times. So really, yeah, thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you, James. Difficult and sensitive subjects, and I know Ali is a photographer as well and has documented war, so I imagine that there might be a further conversation that Ali might be interested in. James, I don't know, maybe we could talk about that later, if that's something that interests you both. And thank you. Any other questions for James before we move to our second speaker this evening? And there will be time at the end as well. Okay, Ware, are you going?
Okay. Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Mr. James. The second speaker is Brenda Hershey from the US. She is NGO president and founder. She is going to talk about role of mind-body methods in healing in theory and practice. Welcome. Welcome, Brenda. Can you hear us, please?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you for the introduction and for having me here tonight. It feels like a really special event. And James, I'm happy to be going after you because your energy is so calming. I feel like really just, you set the tone for the event, and I appreciate that. So my name is Brenda, and I'm the president and founder of Try Global, which is an international organization based here in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. So I've been here for a few years now doing humanitarian work in a few different sectors. And about a year ago, I'd been working for Trauma Recovery Yoga, or TRY, in the US for a few years before coming here. But working in the field for so long with the beneficiaries, it was really apparent to me that what was missing was mind-body methods. So talk therapy and psychological support is very underdeveloped here, but it exists. Like it's on the rise in Kurdistan, and I think in the Middle East generally. But there are no mind-body methods that still to this day I'm aware of, or in the national health sector meetings that they're aware of. So I felt really called to share these practices with people here and around the world. So I am going to share my screen with you. Here we go. So actually, James, as you mentioned, as you were hoping, these mind-body methods that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today also are a great method, or just a different avenue to help people get unstuck in traditional talk therapy. Because there are physiological reasons that people can easily be stuck in not being able to put words to their trauma. So I'll be talking with you about body-based practices. And my goal is that by the end, like in 20 minutes, you have a better understanding of the science behind why we must include the body in healing and recovery, and that you have some really simple but powerful tools that you can use to integrate to cope with whatever is coming up for you. Yeah, and actually, before we get into the science, I would like to ask you guys, I'll try to engage you a little bit. put a number 1 in the chat if you are someone who needs to see the research. You need to understand the science before you buy into something. Put a 1 in the chat. Oh, and actually, maybe Fran, could you? Oh no, here, I couldn't find the chat.
Hi, yeah. I'll monitor the chat for you, Brenda, so you can talk if you want.
Cool, thanks. So 1 in the chat if you're into the science. Put a 2 if you can believe something, if you feel it for yourself, just through personal experience. Let's see. I'm honestly a bit of both. I'm a good combination of the 2. And yeah, I'll repeat it. So put a 1 in the chat if you need to see the proof of something before you believe it. You need to see the research or understand the science. Put a 2 in the chat if just through your personal experience, you feel the benefit of something, then you can advocate for it. Like you experience a yoga class, it makes you feel good, and you're like, this works. So I just like to gauge where we are as a group, because I think both are really important. And that's my goal in emphasizing the theory and the practice, is giving you some of the science, some of the information, and some tools, because that's where I think we can really build resilience, and what my experience has reinforced for me. Because I was teaching trauma recovery yoga and practicing it, but I hadn't experienced a big trauma myself. So I was teaching for about 6 months, and then I found myself, I'll share this story with you all. I was on an airplane flying to Guatemala to teach TRI. And just before we landed, I got a message on my phone that my dad had unexpectedly passed away. He had a heart attack. And so immediately, I'd been studying the science of trauma, working with TRI, and I was traveling around the US training people. But I hadn't felt in my body what such a shock to my system felt like. And so I had the information and I had the tools that we'll practice later to process that. And that's really powerful. So let's get into it. First, a little bit of science. So here we have the nervous system. And so what happens during a traumatic event in our bodies? This is really the information piece. So first of all, our bodies are amazing. They're wired for survival. They're wired to protect us at all costs. So within seconds of detecting something dangerous, our brain, the alarm system of our brain, the amygdala, starts pumping stress hormones into our body. Our eyes, our pupils start to dilate. Our digestive system is inhibited because if you need to run or confront something, you don't want to go to the bathroom or think, oh, I'm hungry right now. So if you see here this very detailed chart, this is just all the ways. Your heart rate is increasing. All the ways that our body is almost immediately acting to protect us, so that we can either confront this danger or run away. So the problem really is when we get stuck in the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. So you see here at the top, we have parasympathetic and sympathetic. I like to think of parasympathetic as it's the calming branch. I like to think of a parachute, like slowly coming down. So that's more the rest, digest part of our nervous system. Whereas the sympathetic, S for stress. And while we might think that, obviously you don't want to be in a stress state all the time, that's where it becomes problematic. We also don't want to be in a parasympathetic state all the time. We want to find balance in our nervous system. So we'll talk a little bit more about how we can do that. We'll move into this then. So a couple different approaches as to how we can approach our healing, our recovery. we have on the left here, the top-down approach, which is talk therapy generally. It's the mind trying to influence the body. Whereas on the right side, we have bottom up. And that's when we can include the body, and the body is influencing the mind. So what we provide with TRI is a bottom up approach. We're involving the body because trauma is a physiological experience. Like it's really, put a 3 in the chat. I'll ask you guys, put a 3 in the chat if you have experienced something traumatic and felt this rush of energy through your body, like you felt it in your body, because it moves through your body before it reaches your mind. So yeah, for sure. I think if we've been on the planet for very long, we've experienced something. And so because it's a physiological experience, we have to move through the body to address it fully. And so this bottom up approach, it does not replace talk therapy or top down approaches, but it's complementary. So when you have both, that's when you can really fully process some stuff. Good. I'm seeing all your numbers in the chat. Thanks, guys. And so the vagus nerve, understanding the vagus nerve really helped me connect the dots as to why we must include the body in healing and recovery and building resilience. Because the goal is not to, we'll never be just fully healed, right? It's a journey, it's a process. But for me, the goal is to work toward not just living a life of recovery, but to build a life of resilience. And that was the gift I had by having built a level of resilience in teaching these practices. And then when my big trauma happened, I was able to find my feet on the floor. I was able to find my breath. I was basically walking myself through a chair class and through the tools I'm gonna walk you guys through today. And I was really present in those moments. And I'm sure that nothing stayed in my body, none of that unresolved emotion. So the vagus nerve. And I know I'm talking a lot. I'm just trying to add as much value as I can in this 20 minutes, but the vagus nerve is the largest nerve in our body. It travels, as you can see here, from the brainstem into the facial area, through the tongue, the throat, and into every major organ in your body. And it plays a huge role in how we think, how we feel, and just generally how we show up, how we live. And that's for a few reasons. So one of its main jobs is to bring balance into the nervous system. So as I mentioned, we don't want to be in a really zenned out state all the time, as much as that, or as nice as that might be at times. If you sit down to meditate, you want to be able to drop into a calmer state, but you don't want to stay there all the time. And of course, you don't want to stay in this stressed out state all the time. And your body is, the power is in being able to move or to switch back and forth as needed, depending on what our external circumstances are presenting. But generally, we want to be balanced. And the vagus nerve helps bring us back to balance in the nervous system. And it works in sync with the nervous system. So that's its first really big job. It's also called our body's communication superhighway. So it is in charge of all of the parasympathetic messaging happening in our body. So there's this constant messaging happening body to brain, brain to body, whether we realize it or not. Like it's all connected. And this fact really brought it all home for me. So 80% of the messaging is, so 80% of the fibers in this nerve are communicating from the body to the brain. It's from the bottom up. So if you've ever, actually I'll I'll show you this image. If you've ever experienced the stress loop, where you're in a stressful situation, you feel the stress in your body, so maybe you're at an event and someone shows up that you don't want to see, or someone says something that upsets you, or you felt triggered at any point. You're having a physiological response, and you might try to think. Put a 5 in the chat if you've ever tried to think your way out of stress. So like, okay, calm down. You know, it's not a big deal, or well, that shouldn't bother me. I thought I worked through that. It's fine. I'm fine. You know, anything like this. So we've all done it. And it doesn't really work. And it's not because we're personally flawed in some way. It's because 80% of the messaging happening in our body is from the body to the brain. So only 20% is, you know, from the top down. So the way that we break this stress loop is simple. And it's the quickest way is to take a few deep breaths from your belly. So we're going to practice this in just a minute, but here are some other natural, free tools to help tone your vagus nerve or strengthen the vagus nerve. On the right here, the best way, take a few deep breaths. Otherwise, we have laughing, meditating, getting a massage, being in nature, humming. We do this at the end of our classes with children. Instead of a shavasana or like a closing meditation, we just hum. And essentially anything that feels, or that is, the vagus nerve detects as like safe, it will strengthen it, okay? It's really that easy. And then on the right, we have some different yoga postures that we use throughout our practices that help strengthen the vagus nerve. So really simple but powerful tools that help bring balance back into people's nervous system after they've experienced a trauma or a lifetime of traumas, you know? And so that is, that vagal toning along with neuroplasticity are really two of our big scientific pillars. So working with rewiring the brain for healthier thoughts that we use in classes here in Kurdistan. We teach classes to children, women, men, people of all ages, all levels of mobility. This is a class in a camp, in Sharia camp, for those who are familiar. And these are children who survived ISIS captivity. And the response has been across the board incredible. And people feel the effects both immediately, and this photo is actually of young Yazidi women. And it was part of an 8-week intervention where I taught one 45-minute class per week to 2 different groups, young survivors of genocide by ISIS in 2014, and the other of local humanitarians. And I'll put the link in the chat after this to the research and to some nice just visuals of it. But the impact on their mental and physical trauma symptoms, on their heart rate variability, which is how we measure the state of the vagus nerve, and their resilience levels were incredible. So that, we also train people. We're going to Ukraine this summer to train locals to teach trauma recovery yoga. This was a training here in Kurdistan. We have a couple more coming up. So if anyone's interested in being involved in any way, please reach out to me, follow us on social media, and stay updated. But I know I just have a few minutes left. So I would really love to take you through a short self-regulation practice, if that's cool. Okay. So sitting comfortably. We're not going to do anything crazy, I promise. We'll practice a little self-regulation. So finding a comfortable seat, you could be sitting on the floor, on your bed, anywhere is fine. Letting your hands rest on your legs. dropping your chin toward your chest, either closing your eyes or softening your gaze, and breathing in and out of your nose. Taking a few mindful breaths here. On your next inhale, letting your shoulders melt down and just noticing. Mindfulness is just a fancy word for noticing. Noticing what's coming up for you physically, mentally, and not labeling good or bad, just noticing and finding that next inhale. We'll do some self-regulation. The first piece is orientation, which is just finding yourself in your space. So as we sit here and breathe, noticing 3 different sounds that you can hear right now. Counting to yourself, maybe hearing your breath. And now gazing softly down, notice 4 different textures in your line of sight. As we gaze down, palms open on the legs, we're signaling to the brain, all is well, I am safe, I am breathing, I am calm. And as we gaze down, noticing your connection with your legs, your feet to the floor or the chair, your sit bones on the chair, maybe feeling your back against the back of the chair. Grounding is another great tool to help bring us back to the present moment. Feeling the weight of your hands on your legs, breathing here, feeling everywhere you're being supported right now. And hearing the words, I am grounded, I am supported, I am present. We notice what's happening around us. Now let's notice what's happening on the inside. Noticing any sensations in your abdomen. And now finding your center by lifting the pelvic floor. So engaging your abdominal muscles. As you inhale, sit up a little taller. Exhale, pressing your belly button in toward your spine, pressing all the air out. Do that 2 more times, engaging your core as you inhale. Exhale. 1 more time, hearing the words, I am centered, I am powerful, I am present. And now breathing naturally again and moving to the last piece, which is your breath. We can't breathe in the past or in the future. You can only breathe right here, right now. So knowing your breath is available to you always to anchor you into the present moment. Just tracing a few breaths in through the nose, the throat, into the lungs, and tracing it back out. Do that a few more times and not changing anything, just observing, seeing where the breath stops. Maybe it stops in the lungs, maybe it reaches the belly. Just noticing here. Oftentimes, we're only breathing from the chest. And when we're doing that, and regardless of trauma, just living a modern lifestyle, we might be breathing from the chest. And when we do that, our body is signaling to the brain that there is stress or danger present, even if there's not. So the way we break that stress loop is by taking a few breaths from the belly, placing 1 hand on your stomach. As you inhale, trying to allow the breath to go all the way in, feeling your belly expand even just a little bit. Exhaling. Do that 2 more times. As we signal to the brain, all is well, I am breathing, I am healing. Bringing your hands back to your legs, taking 1 more big breath in through the nose and exhale out of the mouth. Noticing how you feel in your body and your mind and any difference and how you felt from when we first sat down. Whenever you're ready, slowly blinking your eyes open and lifting your gaze. Thank you all for practicing with me.
Thank you, Brenda.
For being
if I may ask a question.
Yes, please.
Concerning, first, I work in the mental health field, and I have several clients who suffer from, chronic pain. And, these chronic pain, they range from fibro, they range from rheumatism, they range from tumors. And, there's a huge link between mind, body, and soul, as we were speaking about it. But in your own, personal opinion and professional opinion concerning illnesses and chronic pain within the joints. So I see a lot of people who, struggle, young people and old people, they struggle with chronic pain within their joints. And in your own personal opinion, I do have some idea about, the reason behind the pain and the inflammation. But what could be the root cause of these pain, these inflammations?
Really good question. First and foremost, this acknowledgement that it is all connected is really important. I've heard testimonials of people with, of course, with yoga, like there's a lot of data now backing up that yoga helps decrease these different chronic symptoms, including joint pain. And here specifically, I have noticed a lot of digestive issues and stomach pain, like severe or chronic stomach pain with young people. And people will feel the effects right away, like by practicing a little mindfulness. So I think by just making a little space for like fostering a sense of safety in their bodies goes a long way by doing a short, like 5-minute practice like this. So I know that's not a real scientific answer, but here it has been proven to help people feel better right away. And then this research we did helped like digestive issues. And we also tested restlessness, fatigue, headaches, migraines like this. Yeah, so I think the combination of breath and movement and all of that. But
I think now in today's world, we live in a constant chronic stress situations. We're always on the go. We always have like work, the kids, the mortgage. So all of these are constant stressors, and there's not going to be a time of our life right now in this era was gonna like, okay, I'm gonna calm down now. It's always gonna be stress free. So I think it's a constant input from ourselves to always be mindful, to always be present, to always work, and to be aware of our bodies and what our bodies are trying to tell us.
Totally. And I think by having these tools that are integratable, that you can do like 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here, are where the magic is.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that question. And you've just made me think, Rania. And so I hear you completely. I'm also extremely busy, as probably most of us are. I do a class every week called Body Balance. And the last 5 minutes, it's a mixture of Tai Chi, Pilates, and yoga. And the last 5 minutes is a class meditation where we all focus on our breathing in the same way that Brenda just took us through now. And it's the only time of the week where I consciously make time and effort to do this. And I heartily recommend it. Really works for me anyway. That was amazing. Brenda, thank you so much. A lovely compliment and a different side of a type of art therapy. And I love that we're building a picture of different therapies here as well. If there are any other questions for Brenda, we will have time at the end. I think we're going to move to our third speaker now. I'm about to sneeze as well, so apologies for that. Sorry. There you go. Sorry.
Bless you.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Right, our third speaker is Dr. Sarah Basil from Iraq. And Dr. Sarah has headed several positions in Iraqi hospitals over the past 10 years and is an accomplished French speaker, which we found out at the beginning, and also piano player, I believe, as well. So Sarah, Dr. Sarah, is going to give us a talk about her experience with art therapy and a child diagnosed with autism. Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, friends. And thank you very much, Brenda, for this lovely content and for this lovely, relaxing lesson. It's very make me feel good and relaxing. Thank you very much. Now, I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sarah Bassett. I'm a family doctor. Also, I am a pianist. I'm interested in joining my hobby as a pianist with my work as a doctor. It's my pleasure to participate today in this very useful meeting and become as a speaker in the family of Breaking Boundaries, which organized by Mr. Ware. As we know, art therapy is very underdeveloped here in Iraq. But I had one case of an autistic child. He's a high functional autistic child. He's playing piano and there is a very clearly development in his gross and fine motor. Also, there is a development in his verbal and speaking, also a development in his behavior. As we know that every individual who had a mental illness or had any behavior or mental illness often express themselves by an art, by drawing, by music, in a way to express a health strategy. Now I want to share my screen with you.
Lovely, we can see that.
My topic today is I'm talking about art therapy in autism spectrum disorder. First of all, I want to define what is art therapy. It is an establishment of a mental health profession that uses the creative process of an art making to improve and enhance the mental, physical, emotional well-being of individuals of all ages. It's based on the belief that a creative process helps for self-expression, also resolve conflicts, develop interpersonal skills, manage behaviors, reduce the stress, as Brenda now is doing the relaxing lesson, also increase the self-esteem and achieve insight. Objectives of art therapy focused on communication, imagination, and socialization. As we know, the autistic child has a great deficit in this, in the communication, imagination, and socialization. Also, address the behavior without any pressure. We as a doctor, we need to address the behavior of the child without any kind of pressure. Also design groups to develop a social skills and a friendship. The autistic child make a friendship with another children or with his piano teacher. I'm sorry. To determine the child functional level, the autism has two levels, a high functional level and a low functional level, and a creative expression. Autism spectrum disorder. What is autism spectrum disorder? It is a condition related to a brain development that impacts how a person perceives and socialize with others, causing problems in the social interaction and communication. We have, autism has 5 stages from low to high. Rett syndrome, childhood destructive disorder, Kanner syndrome, and Asperger. Common autism spectrum disorder behaviors. They have repetitive tendencies, obsessive compulsive, aggression toward themselves or toward others, withdrawal due to oversensory stimulation. Here, major deficits of or difficulties in autism spectrum disorder in communication, in imagination, and in socialization, the major 3 deficits in autism spectrum disorder. The benefit of art therapy in an autistic child to increase their attention, increase their socialization, and build relationship with other children and with the art teacher. Also increase their imagination, improve their behavior, improve their verbal skills. Autistic children had a deficit in their verbal skills because they are unsocial and not communicating to others. So their verbal skills is low. Decrease agitation toward themselves and toward others. Enhance auditory processing and regulation and integration of their sensory. We have 2 types of an art therapy, an individual art therapy and grouped art therapy. The benefit of individual art therapy is to establish a trust, aid in the assessment. Also, it can help with the individual needs and skills, and it is useful in creating and enforcing behavior plans. The group, using art therapy as a group, it allows for socialization, also challenges child ability, builds coping skills, and can make use of skills development. Goals and outcome of the art therapy in the treatment of an autistic children. The child will continue to learn about working together, so it becomes more social. Enhance the social skills and awareness. Enhance the ability to express creativity. Reinforce a good behavior. Improve the language, the verbal skills by communication. Also, decrease agitation and control their emotion by developing a coping mechanism. Also develop a stronger fine and gross motors. When the child used an art therapy, he used a paint box or a piano keys. This will lead to development of his develop his strong fine and gross motors. Here is a very important question. How old should a child be start an art therapy? I mean an autistic child. A child with an autistic spectrum disorder can begin art therapy at 2 or 3 years old. So we can become as early as possible. And it becomes very useful when we start earlier. We have many types of art therapy that's using in an autistic children. Music, dancing, painting, and clay using. I want to ask you all, this is a drawing of a 4-year child. He's an autistic child. I want to ask you all, is there anyone who can explain this picture to me, please?
I can't explain it, but a 4-year, somebody that was 4 drew it, really?
Here's a picture of a 4-year autistic child. He drew this drawing. Can anyone try to explain this picture to me, please?
You can write down on chat box or you can.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not sure. Not a professional at this, but looking through the colors and the sticks that were drawn, they were drawn in red. So, and there was also an additional red on the red sticks. So maybe there's some sort either emotional abuse or maybe physical abuse, and maybe there's like some sense of separation between him and the family, maybe like the tribe. He feels like he's not connected, as each stick is not together Or maybe like these two are together. They're like maybe the mom and dad. This seems to be bigger than the other. So probably the father, you know, it's bigger. Maybe he
Yes.
has a sister or something. So it feels like there's a separation. There's no connection.
Exactly.
And since he's very young, he
Exactly.
must feel this.
Exactly.
I don't know.
This is a picture explain the feeling of this child who's suffering from separation of his parents. The biggest one is his father and the smallest one is his mother.
Yeah.
And here is the separation of his mother and father, and everybody become in away from the other. Exactly. So as we all we see that drawing or art can express our feeling. So it is not only a therapeutic, it is only a diagnostic way to express our feeling. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rania.
Thank you.
In this video of an autistic child, he's Muhammad Al-Mustafa. He is trying to play piano with his piano teacher. I'd like to see this video with me. He touched the fingers of his piano teacher in order to see and learn the keys. As you all see that he's trying to touch the fingers of his piano teacher in order to see the correct keys, then he will play piano and the same correct keys of his piano teacher. This is the most precious video that's touched my heart. This is an autistic child who's called Muhammad Al-Mustafa. He's playing Happy Birthday to You in my birthday in the last December. And also he's singing the song of Happy Birthday to me. Kindly, let's see the video together. Thank you, everybody. As a doctor, I used an art therapy as a way to assessment the functional level of the autistic child. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. Another fascinating talk. Any questions from the audience who are on the call?
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Well, it ranges here. Usually autism, it's very specific. And as I see a lot of children here, one of them was actually my nephew. It's a very personal story, but he was diagnosed by a therapist as he has part autism due to him being completely dissociated from his environment. And he always had his head straight to the floor. He doesn't look anyone in the eyes. He's very shy. He doesn't speak. And he has, up until he's 6 years old, so he has still trouble speaking full sentences, full correct sentences. So from my own personal opinion, I don't think he is autistic, but I mean, you know better. Do you think this is something related to autism?
Autism had a very wide spectrum. He has very properties and very types. I mentioned we have five kinds of autistic spectrum. That's why we said a spectrum, not a disease. It's not a state. It is a spectrum. So if he had nodding his head repetitively, if he had an hand movement like this, if he's not socialized, he has a deficit in the communication, if he had not developed very well verbal skills, we may put him in the spectrum of an autism.
Okay, I understand. All right, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Anybody else on the call? Obviously, people streaming, that's a different. Nope.
Sarah, I would like to know, is there other doctors in your area who provide the same kind of service, or is it really as rare as you said?
Hello.
How rare is it? Merci beaucoup, madame.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. In our country, art therapy is very underdeveloped. We don't have any type of art therapy in Baghdad, in Iraq. But I am a pianist and I am a doctor. I'm interested in combining my my hobby in playing piano and in my career as a doctor. So I read and read about the art therapy. And I have one case of an autistic child. He's Mohammed Al-Mustafa. And we used art therapy in playing piano with him. There is a great development in his socialization, in his communication, in his verbal skills, in the development of his fine and gross motors. It is a very successful case. So today I want to present my case here with you, and I want to develop an art therapy in Baghdad.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting. You mentioned something very important. Art therapy in Iraq is invalid. That's the main reason actually I organized this meeting, So hope this meeting will have impact, let's say Ministry of Health, okay, to apply art therapy among health professionals. Okay, thank you very much.
And
thank you, Brenda.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. If I could just add one more piece of insight. So I'm in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and I worked in the health sector when I transitioned here. And as far as we know, there are no schools for kids with special abilities. I'm also working at an international school right now, and I have a boy on the autistic spectrum. And there's no place for people to send their children. So it's incredibly rare. And not only that, but there's a real underdevelopment of people's understanding and acceptance. It's really rejected. Like parents are, from my experience, from what I know, like really ashamed to even admit it. And then in different groups of people, like in Yazidi culture versus Muslim culture, then there are different degrees of their understanding and how they deal with it. But some of it is like really almost traumatic to observe. It's really underdeveloped. Yeah, so this is really just to emphasize how important having this conversation is in this area as well.
I completely agree with you, Brenda. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Maria,
for an interesting presentation. Okay, now let's move on to the fourth and the last speaker, Marie-Paul from France. He's vocal artist. He's going to talk about impact of singing on mental health.
So hello, first of all, I would like to tell everybody my admiration for everything that you do, especially some of us of you that are in some parts of the world where it's not common. And though it's highly requested, because as we know in the world, there's a lot of places where stuff is needed, and the stuff they need is somewhere else. So I really admire what you do. The fact that the mere fact that you're that person, that pioneer that goes where it's not happening. So why do I begin with that? Is because I don't feel I'm really competent in terms of art therapy, because I'm not a therapist at all. I'm rather the recipient of some art as a therapy, because I've been I'm 59 this year, so I've been for the most part of my life, maybe less minus 10 last years, I've been very depressed. I've been a very, very, very traumatized child, as I've been threatened. My life was threatened when I was 4. I lived with some racist people for my whole childhood and adolescence through my mother's bad choices. So I have received the gift of having a voice and liking it from childhood, but it took me my whole adult life to arrive and make it a profession. So I've been a singer for 20 years, and I've had only 3 months of medication in my whole life, though I have, filled those forms where you can assess the mental condition of people. I've been with psychiatrics for a long, long time, like decades of therapy from different parts of like the whole spectrum of what we have. And it has been very efficient. And some of my therapists, one of them told me that I had the numbers of someone that would be addicted to heroin, the same numbers, but I had never any hard drugs like that at all. And why? And that person told me, seems to me that it is because, and thanks to music, because I've been singing, professionally for 20 years, and yeah. So I have a very busy schedule, like everybody. Don't want to complain. I don't have a presentation, but I've made it for myself. So I'm going to talk through my life and experience of what Art has done for me through singing. And so, of course, I loved what Brenda said, because first, mental health is in the body. And second, it's through your breath, because breathing is like the only really necessary thing to live. See, it's it's the core activity. So let me see, what did I read exactly? Yeah, so I've been a singer for the last 20 years, performing jazz music, American and English pop music, French chanson, and my own original music. My experience in learning how to sing defines the value I put in art, for it has helped me change my perception as art from something that was outside of our bodies and to a fundamental experience of life that comes from inside. I had to enter my voice inside of my body and fundamentally change my ways in terms of posture, breath, and focus. And also, I teach singing. As a teacher, this is even more important to know, because most of the people want the results without knowing what is at stake. When you think about singing and music and art, for a lot of people, it is about the results. James said, it's not about beauty. To me, it's not exactly that. The body and what it produces in terms of sounds is already beautiful. It's a question of taste, maybe, that's what you want to say. because anybody that tries to do that, our children, when they paint or when they sing their songs and it's not in tune and it's not nothing, but it's still beautiful. See, it's the right to access the body to produce something with it that is key to really change the value of yourself and also the sensation of where you are. So the intention is valuable. And my responsibility is to guide the students, the people I teach, to engage more and more in their actual physical being. So the thing about art, it's not about the result, it's about what you do in your body and how it's going to change your perception of your life and what you can transmit to others. So the best part, the most important part is the conscious breathing. When I've learned how to sing, also there's different schools. So mine was consistent with safe and healthy use of the body. There's no pushing the voice. There's no strangling it in the throat. Nothing is happening in the throat. Nothing. You have the vocal cords. You don't have. They do stuff automatically. So you can't have any power on them. So don't try, because you're going to lose your voice. All the power is behind below the waist. And that's also something that we gain, especially as women. We may be oftentimes cut from the middle, and we don't have access to the lower belly, because it's kind of charged and of all sorts of stuffs. Because that's where the power is. So the moment the moment when you regain power over those places, and you train your diaphragm to stay low, for instance, to open your breath, that's the moment when you feel better. All sorts of people could talk about chakras and everything. I don't know nothing about that, but I know it's working. So conscious breathing is changing your presence to yourself with focusing on the body. Efficient singing trains the diaphragm to stay the lowest possible, which gives the impression of the breathing from the belly, but nobody really breathes from the belly. You know what I mean? You breathe from your lower lungs, and you have also a mastery, a control over that through relaxing, through daily training. That's that also. You can't train your breathing, which you're doing from the first moment of your life, if you don't do it consistently. Because to change it, you need to convince your body that it's better. At the beginning, it won't comply. It will tell you, no, that's not what we do. And you will continue, as Brenda said, to rely on the upper lungs. It is a practice that will ground anybody de facto. I had people in groups when I was teaching people that we would do the breathing exercise at the beginning, like 30 minutes of different kind of exercise to trigger the lower body, and people would cry. In each group, somebody would cry. Why? Because you face yourself, because your truth is inside of your belly. When you breathe freely, deeply, that's the moment it expresses itself. People find themselves in front of their reality that they now can consciously face. Being efficient at breathing helps you recognize the boundaries of what you are. In that regard, meditation does the same. Meaning we talk, we socialize, we want stuff, we produce stuff. At what moment in our days do we ask ourselves where I am? Where am I? What am I? What do I think? What do I feel? I mean, me by myself on my own. If we don't do that, all the rest is irrelevant because we may feel stress. We may not know where our space is. So how can we welcome the rest of the world? How can we understand our stress? Even being able to name them, to see them, let alone process them if we don't know where we are breathing from. I'm a little bit passionate, sorry. It allows a conscious response to challenges, what I just said, by avoiding the breathing from the upper lungs and stay focused through though challenged. That's also the thing. When you get that habit, it becomes your default. And that's the moment, the interesting moment. Breathing from the upper body triggers a victim response. By getting used to calm down, by having the option, we can help understand the challenges for what they really are and not compound ours with other people's, for instance. Breathing efficiently helps with understanding of our environment. And why is that? Not last time, Ria has the kind of elegance to welcome me. I had that a little presentation where I explained that the brain has only 8% of the weight in the body, but consumes 20% of the oxygen. If we don't breathe fully, we can't understand our environment. The stress is in the way, but also the brain doesn't have the oxygen necessary. We can do the experience every day, all day, just right now, that if you have a session of deep breathing for 5-10 minutes, then you think you feel different. You feel better because your body functions better. So, yeah, that I said. And also you have more power to kind of embrace your fear, because that's why us being aware of the lower body is very powerful, because that's where fear is. But the moment when us as human beings, we can embrace it, let it express itself and welcome it, because we continuously breathe, as Brenda said. You really taught me a lot as well. Yeah, it's the moment when we can do a whole with different, very extreme, different sensation in ourselves, like fear and acceptance. Yeah. So what is it good for as well? Expression of the emotions. That's like my jam. That's how it really helped me through my personal journey through singing. Singing allows personal expression. We carry a lot of stories inside of our bodies, hearts, and minds. Being able to share them in a beautiful manner. Beautiful doesn't mean a question of taste. It's the way that you do it, although it may be not the taste of everybody. It's like your human imprint inside of the universe is already beautiful. It improves one's confidence and may turn some dreadful experiences into a set of knowledge and skills. Being able to share with your fellow human lightens everyone's burden, as well as maybe rewarded now for some emotion which felt like a punishment. Meaning when we share those emotions that comes from dark places, dark events, what can we do? What could I do when I was little and I had no babysitter? I would sing because God allowed it. I had the ability to do it. I heard people do it, and I recognized as instinctively, I was very, very, very small. I was 7 or 8, that it would change my state of mind at will. So being able to share, I already said it. This improves the general experience of our life and help us with getting nuances. So in my personal life, singing has been part of my therapy. First, because singing is holding a vibration in yourself that you choose. Our emotions are also vibrations. I would not be able to explain it scientifically, but I know it's a vibration. Every atom in the matter that we are is vibrating. So if we are stressed or if we are at peace, it's not the same vibration. On the same note, different songs will create different emotions in you. If you're sad, you shouldn't listen to too much sad song. Maybe you can if you want to cry, if you want to let it out, but you need to know that it's going to have that effect that also Brenda explained in between the mind and the body. It will emphasize the feeling. But being able to choose it has been very important for me. Choosing your emotion, mastering the impact they had on me, played an important part in me mastering them at all, being able to differentiate them, understanding that if I sing sad songs, and it's all good, I can also sing happy and joyful and powerful songs, and then my state will change. So am I really sick mentally? Am I really depressed? No, I understood that it was also a question of what experiences I choose to have. It's the magic of life. I really love that part. It's the part that I live now. Yeah. There must be a moment when we choose to have a pleasant, harmonious life, whatever the circumstances. That's why I really admire you pioneers who work with people that have been through hell. So even through hell, you can put someone in a state when that woman, that child, that man discover that, oh, I have that speck of happiness that nobody can steal from me. That empowerment factor makes a lot of impact, makes a lot of the impact of music in general, and singing especially as it happens inside of the body. Each song is a universe in and of itself, a life that you could have lived, a dream that you had, a nightmare that we've been through. It's human nature spreading in sounds. A human being is nothing without a constant connection with its soul, spirit, imagination, whatever you want to call it. When we are reduced to material tasks and responsibilities, social duties, and various laws of behavior, without being able to express the energy which originates our very presence in life and on earth, we lose the drive to do anything. We may develop disease, dis-ease, psychological disorders because we lack the love that comes with the vibration of beauty, wherever it may be. It's intrinsic to our nature to express ourselves. Some grow plants, some grow ideas, others would do sounds, movement, paintings. I know machine builders, mothers of toddlers, social workers who are deeply dived into the art of living. It's an attitude of respect towards the magic of life, the infinite mystery. Without that option, our nature is denied and our health declines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Wow, thank you. I found that like a poem, almost like a recital. It was beautiful, like more than a presentation. It was a bit like a sort of performance art, and I thought I'd like to hear you in an evening for an event, if that makes sense. So that's my personal response.
Thank you. That's because I'm a singer, I'm a performer, I write songs every day, all day, and it's very intense moment at the moment. So that's, I can't do stuff otherwise. So I decided that I would show you all what I can do to support the work that you do for other people.
And please don't feel any pressure, but if I asked you if you would sing a song for us now, would that be awkward? Don't worry if you'd rather not,
but I don't know if you will have the ability to really hear, because the sound is kind of different. but I need to think about something. If someone has a question, I will think about what I could sing.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions from the audience? There was so much to think about there.
Well, not a question, but it was very noteworthy to hear that information about oxygen. I didn't know that if we make deeper breaths, it makes our brains clearer. Very, very noteworthy. I will do this practice after we finish our conversation.
By the way, Mr. Russia from Russia, Mr. Roma from Russia.
Thank you, Vuria.
I remember you.
I remember you too. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, that's good. That's community. Yes.
So it's nice to hear that the science of what you were saying is coming through, as well as the emotional and the creative aspects as well, and that is chiming with people. Someone called Cheyenne Yassine in the chat has also said, would it be too rude if I asked Miss Coutin for a song? And so we'll leave that with you maybe another time, or maybe you
No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right away. It's always the same song that I sing in those circumstances. Let's not try to find another one. It's called The Sparrow. It's a Negro spiritual, and also it's a song that is good a cappella without any instrument. So why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadow come? Why should my heart feel lonely and long from heaven and all, when Jesus He's my portion? How constant friend is He. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He's watching over me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He's watching over me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. He's on the sparrow, and I know He's watching over me.
Amazing. Magnifique voix, une belle chanson.
Merci, merci Sarah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
So,
Thank you.
so lovely.
There's some comments in the chat. They're saying thank you so much. That's beautiful. And also you remind me as well, I'm thinking while you were singing with such passion and so open, it was reminding me of the rich musical heritage that Iraq has with poetry and music. And I think that's just such a lovely way to wrap up tonight, because it speaks to Iraq and Iraq's heritage as well. And maybe there's something there with the topic tonight as well. Thank you. I love that.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Soran, I think you have a question. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Soran.
Thank you so much, Kakuya. I really appreciate it. Good evening, first of all. And I just wanted to before ask my question, I just wanted to say that really thank you, all of you, for this wonderful presentation. That was revolutionary session. Really, really, that was revolutionary. And it was really a good song, ma'am. It was really emotional. So my question is to Brenda. She was mentioning about working in 2 different environments. So I would ask if the consequences, the results with the treatment could be different from a culture to another. While you are working here in Kurdistan and you were practicing in the Western US, as you said. So are the people interacting in a different way? If the answer is yes, so are the consequences and the results could be different? And that's my question. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the question. It's a great question, especially for such an international group. And you know, the short answer is I think we have to approach it a different way depending on the culture, but generally speaking, the impact is the same. Like children, I've taught children around the world at this point, and they all, and the adults even, but they all receive the treatment, the treatment or the practice the same way. They feel like an immediate calming. You can see it a minute after we sit down, like this. And I feel that like in the room. So here and everywhere, really, like I push the science of it, you know. I think we just have to be careful. We have to meet people where they are. We have to speak their language. But otherwise, like humans are humans, and it really shows. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I've got a question actually to Sir James, or maybe Dr. Sarah, or maybe Brenda, and Mary as well. Can we treat, okay, dementia, okay, through art therapy?
I have some information about that. Yeah, it's interesting. We have understandings about the brain and parts of the brain. Using images can be really useful, and there's real evidence where image making or working with photographs or objects and working in museums sometimes, where someone can come back and be in the moment and be connected from looking at a photograph, from maybe making an image, and those kind of connections are very powerful. I would say that it's something which is useful to kind of have a spark of life and to keep engagement. I'm not very experienced in that area, but there is evidence growing to kind of connect, especially visual art therapy. But I think there's also a sense of projects where groups or individuals are taken to museums to be connected with kind of historic artifacts or things from their past that can be really useful to kind of let people be a bit more fluid in their thinking and become more connected. So it's really interesting question, but yes, there is developments in that area.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, well, I think Aisha, I think you raised your hand.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for this amazing presentation and information about the art and art therapy. First of all, I have like a question, and I have something to add for what has Brenda said. First, my question is to James. About art therapy, do we have like to work with an art therapist or someone who is a specialist with art therapy, or we can just like grab a pen and drawing whatever we think about, or to express our thought on paper?
That's a really good question, and it's an interesting one. So I think we can think about the therapeutic qualities of art making, or the therapeutic qualities of being creative, and how essential that is. And I think we've had some lovely examples of that today in this conversation. As far as being an art therapist and having art therapy, in the UK, and I guess in America too, and other parts of the world where registration has been introduced, you work with an art therapist, a qualified art therapist, and they provide art therapy. So in the UK, it's a legal requirement. If you were to come to a therapist and have art therapy, they would need to be qualified. So somebody couldn't just say, I'll do art therapy with you, but they would need to be qualified. And that would be to keep you safe, in the same way that a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, etc., would be registered for your safety. So that kind of is in the sense of where it's been really established, and it's become part of law, if you like, to keep people safe when they come into therapy. But yes, creativity and its therapeutic qualities, you can engage in that. You can keep diaries, sketchbooks, make, garden, cook, sing. All of those things are vital. But yes, art therapy itself as a discipline is something where we need to keep people safe when somebody is saying, come in and do therapy with me. I hope that answers your question.
That's a good question.
Yes, thank you
Really
for
good
the
question.
answer. And
Thank
I'd
you.
like to add, something for what Brenda said. She explained like the scientific background and connection between like the nervous system and the let's say the meditation, which was amazing. And this really reminds me about a say which we have in Islam about our Prophet Muhammad, like when he said, when you are stressed out or when you are angry, you can go and do wudu, which is like washing your face, your arms, and go and pray to free your soul from the anger and from the all this stressor. And really there is a scientific background behind this, which Brenda explained about, like the vagus nerve, which is part of the parasympathetic system that calms the body. The vagus nerve really which puts the body in the calming state, which is activated by like washing your face or putting water on your face and on your body. And it's all like has the same concept. Praying or meditation, it's all about like disconnecting from the world around you and trying to put your mind and to focus on your own body, on your own self, on your thought, trying to connect to your own soul. And thank you.
I totally agree. And I feel that all of the things that we've discussed here today are so interconnected in ways that aren't like might not be so obvious. And I just wanted to quickly say, Marie, I loved how you I felt it was like really kind of a spiritual experience for me listening to you talk. I found a lot of value in Dr. Sarah and James and like what you share. And by the way, guys, I'm coloring over here. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else is, but
Can you hold it again, Brenda?
yeah. So I'm like having an experience here with you.
Wow.
Wow, very beautiful, Brenda.
I didn't draw this. I'm coloring it, but yeah. And Marie, with your approach, like I felt like it gave more depth and highlighted the breath, which I really emphasize in trainings, but I wasn't able to highlight here tonight because, you know, the breath to me is everything. So I just wanted to thank you guys for the comprehensive and like engaging and multidimensional kind of presentation we have collectively given here. I really am happy to be a part of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful, very enlightening, very various topics, and it was nice, you know, to get to know different cultures, how they think, and the impact you guys are trying to make in the world. It's very, really inspirational. I mean, the highest, in my opinion, I think the highest of our purpose or mission on this earth is to be, you know, beside each other and to help each other get through. This is the real, you know, essence of community. So chapeau bas for everyone.
Oh my God, French again. To me, there's so much value in those Zoom calls when we are all over the world and it's the same soul. There's only one soul there, let's be honest. See, in different bodies, doing its best.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Roman, I think you wanted to say something. Sorry.
I have one very interesting question. Yeah, actually, this summer I graduated from the university. I was taught to be an interpreter and translator. But these days I'm thinking about starting my second education. I'm very interested in psychology, and I have a psychological question. I guess it's a general one, but maybe James and Sarah face this question more often than other speakers. When you deal with people who have some mental problems, who have some useless thoughts, for example, let's say so, when you had classes, had lessons with them, don't you need to do some special practices by yourself to clean your own brains after you dealt with someone who have some such mental problems? I mean, when you alone, your brain is clear. But when you deal with someone who have some useless thoughts, don't some of these thoughts come to your own brain?
It's a really interesting question, and I guess I'll try and keep it brief. From a therapist point of view, a practicing therapist, we have something called supervision. So we actively are always talking to our supervisors to think about what's happening in the space, how it's making us feel, what we might need to do to keep ourselves well. So it's interesting kind of thinking about kind of engaging ourselves to keep ourselves well as well. So the creative process is really important, that we're well, that we're aware of our thoughts and feelings as well, how we're feeling and how we model those things. So mindfulness, breathing, really where our body is, what we might need to do after we've had a difficult session, after we've supported somebody who's had high levels of distress. We need to go for a walk, we need to sing, we need to cook, we need to breathe, and we need to talk with others. So there is a process which, as a therapist, within the work that we do, or as a psychologist, we've got to be really mindful of what we do and where we are, and be well as we can be, and be insightful. And that takes a lot of work sometimes. So I think sometimes there's an idea that mental health professionals are well, but mental health professionals are human beings too, and they need to work at looking after themselves and being well and being insightful. And creativity is an important part of that. And the exercises that Brenda's talked about today, we need to be really aware of that in our bodies as well when we work with people who are under lots of stress and distress, so that we can be responsive and receptive to them.
Thank you.
I also want to add that every individual can express their thoughts, their feeling by others, not only who have a mental illness. You know what? The same music, I can play it on the piano in a different way. When I become angry, I can play the same music in an angry way. When I feel romantic, I can play the same music in a romantic way. So music or an art, it can express our feeling and our thoughts.
Thank you. That's really
I want
interesting.
to add something if I may, of course. First, well, you were saying something about the thoughts, useless thoughts. So I just wanted to quickly add that nothing is useless in our heads. Everything is interconnected. I mean, the mere thought that we think that our thought is useless, it would, makes us feel very bad, and we wouldn't feel good, at the end of the day. So keeping mindful that everything is, it's important, it's valued. This is really key to self-acceptance. And usually I do agree with James. What he said was really totally right. I mean, it's like a saying in the mental health field that each coach needs a coach and each therapist needs a therapist. And I want to also add that when we do have like a difficult session, when we have like a client, I'm gonna call it client, not a patient, a client that triggered something inside of us that made us think something, because you said that if the thought, we keep it within ourselves after the session ended. So everything is a projection. So if the thought stayed with me, it meant it triggers something within me. And during the healing journey, it never really ends. It's always a continuous improvement of ourselves, which is so beautiful. And each person makes us learn something about ourselves. So it's, it's always something to be triggered of, something to be thought of, something to be learned from the other person. So yeah, that's about it.
Right, yeah, because it's a very highly relevant issue, because as I have already mentioned, I'm very interested in this field, in this psychological domain. So before, if I choose to start my second education in this field, I want to know as much as possible what I can face when I have some experience like this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, do your research, get more deep, do what you gotta do before you do anything. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you very much, Mr. Roman. Okay, we are going to pick one more question from Cheyenne. You raised your hand. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My question is for Mr. James. I may come off as a pessimistic or something here, but I was wondering if you ever encountered a case where the patient exhibits harmful or suicidal content through their art expressions, and were you ever afraid that they might act upon those thoughts, and how would you handle a case like that? Thank you in advance.
Okay, that's quite a question to finish on. We always work to make sure somebody feels safe. And if images are made, we've already contracted to kind of think about keeping somebody safe. So if that's kind of expressed within the process, within the images, then it is about kind of checking in and making sure that they're safe, that we have systems of support to kind of help them. So in that sense, often we have different teams. So we might kind of contract and say, we've got the crisis team to support, or what do we need to do, or how do we need to approach that? So that's working with the individual in the moment and what they need. So yes, things come up, but we'd have already contracted to say what we're working with and how to keep safe and the systems of support to keep that safe. So I never work in isolation. I work within a team, and that team has protective factors. And there are ways of making sure that when I work with a client, I'm clear about psychological safety. So there's quite a big subject there. But yes, that does come up, and expression does come up, and it can be within a mental health setting that those challenges are there, but it can be a safer way of doing it. So I have had those experiences before, yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cheyenne, for your question.